Guys, I'm excited to talk about the word pivot, the P word, the dreaded P word. And one thing that I want to talk about before we really get involved in this, talk with Mahoganey and myself, is really what a pivot is and is not, and kind of why it is a trigger word, at least from my perspective. And Mahoganey, we've kind of agreed on this as well too, and really kind of give you guys an analogy that's relatable. In my opinion, and I think Mahoganey are well aligned on this, a pivot defines something that's interchangeable. It's like if you're at a gala dinner and you're offered chicken or beef, an interchangeable entree based off of preference, but they have equal value and substance, right? Now, if you were offered a pivot meal and it was a chicken dish or a granola bar, it's obvious that the pivot is not quite as fulfilling and as similar of a mode as you're talking about. So we're talking about something that has a different experience altogether, and the substance behind it is entirely different. So this is a world of new and modified experiences, not necessarily pivots. So now join us as we discuss digital and hybrid experiences in this new and modified world. So joining me today is somebody you guys all know well, Mahoganey. Take it away, and let's talk about beyond the platform and embracing the digital pivot, if you will.
Absolutely. I am super excited to be our guest here this week. And it's a conversation that we were having over and over again. And it's also something that keeps coming up. And I really wanted us to drive home that your virtual experience is more than the platform that you're choosing. We are going beyond the platform and really redefining what that experience should look like. And I really wanted to expand a bit on the platform because I feel like we always kind of dodge this question of which platform should we choose. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not going to tell you which platform to choose. But what I will say is we want to really dive into what level of engagement do you want to have at your event? What is the goal of the event? And when we look at that, then you can start to decide which platforms actually match what you're looking to produce. So do you need that hand raise function? What about live Q&A? What about cross-talking? I mean, that is one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to most platforms, is that you can only have one camera live per se as someone is talking.
So Mahoganey, one of the most important things that's important to emphasize is really how you want the engagement to go. If there's no two-way engagement, why not just pre-record a segment so you can guarantee the quality of the film, quality of audio, landing that segment exactly at time, making sure that all the speakers cover everything that you want to without wasting unnecessary time kind of going into the woods on subject matters like we've seen on some of these Zoom conversations. And again, crosstalk is huge. If you have a large panel of 30 attendees, right, one platform might not address your needs or it might engage too many people where it becomes disruptive for that panel. So Mahoganey, I mean, in regards to recording something and then editing that content back in, do you have any feelings about that? I know I've got very strong feelings about recording stuff when at all possible, because it just ensures quality and landing it without having to rely on internet quality and speed. What do you think about that?
Strongly agree. I know other planners in the same boat might have my head for this one, but I am a firm believer in controlling the delivery and the experience. And controlling and the delivery and the experience also means that a session can be pre-recorded. It doesn't mean we can't have the feeling of it being live, but just think about it from more of a production standpoint. I mean, wouldn't you rather guarantee that the content that's being delivered is exactly what you want it to have delivered? And then if you would like to interject your questions and comments, you can do that in the chat for most platform functionalities. And then you can at least keep the content rolling without worrying about, did the speaker miss Q&A 1, 2, and 3, or did they miss this portion? But one of my other favorite features of being able to record is really making sure that your content is consistent. So if you're recording, for example, from one of your speakers isn't necessarily up to par, it allows you to add that post-editing to at least manage the content delivery so that every speaker experience is delivered to your expectations.
All right, so I'm a big fan of random facts, and a lot of people that know me know this. And so one thing that I found really interesting was that on January 30th of this year, there were 7 of the largest airlines. Their market capitalization value was about $121 billion, right? And similarly, before coronavirus, a lot of things were operating as normal. It is interesting to see that those 7 airlines are now worth $46 billion collectively. However, the most interesting fact about this is that Zoom has actually become more valuable than the 7 largest airlines at a market cap of $48 billion. Why am I sharing this random fact? Just to kind of share with you guys how much more streaming that our audiences are these days. Considering that in December 2019, Zoom had an average of 10 million meeting attendees per day. By March 2020, they had 200 million, and by April 2020, they are dealing with over 300 million Zoom attendees daily in just that one platform. All right, so one thing that I find a lot of my clients in the experiential space are talking about is really how to continue to monetize sponsorships. I know in the gala fundraising philanthropy spaces, this is an essential moment to capture dollars from sponsors, even if they're boring banks or insurance companies, or especially if it's a product-centric brand like a Procter & Gamble brand that wants to present at functions, whether it be a conference that's gone digital or it be a movie that needs to premiere. Everyone's been thinking about these alternative experiences that combine an in real life high-touch thing with the full digital requirement of today's no-touch environments. So Mahoganey, let's kind of kick off this section by giving some really cool actionable case studies that people keep seeing in the news and they keep seeing on social feeds, and kind of make them more relatable by doing a little bit and sharing a little bit of our research that we've given our audience here. And we're going to show some of those case studies here, and we'll cut away to video to show you some of these case studies in real life. Mahoganey?
Let's start by looking at what we've done in the past from a hybrid perspective. I mean, we've been producing virtual events. Our application has been different. I want you to really think about things that we've done, like think of that medical convention that you've hosted, that on the trade show floor, we created a digital set, a set that we were streaming sessions out from. I want you to really think of that set. I mean, yes, we don't have the opportunity to use these sets as much as we used to, but it will come back. But let's think about it in that way. A lot of times to streamline the content and the delivery, we've optimized our events by using studios and having broadcasting sessions from a studio that is already equipped with all of the lighting and the sound and everything that we need. But that application can be used today in the event space when it comes to the virtual space. Think of that as your stage. You're no longer going into the venue for the stage, but what can you do? I mean, we talked about lighting previously and adding the lighting and the sound in your own space, but there are still virtual studios that are available to make things happen.
Beyond a Zoom background, or you could even release Zoom backgrounds for your conference that might celebrate what the subject matter is all about, and you could certainly plug a sponsor within that. So you can go very basic, scratch that surface depending on the platform type, right, Mahoganey? Or you can go full-blown green screen digital backgrounds. I know LeaderCast just did a full conference that they televised from Los Angeles, as well as co-produced with the segment in Atlanta, and had a few remote keynote presenters as well as attendees that were part of the actual broadcast. And for that, they actually engaged within digital environments. And a lot of these sound stages and smaller digital studios are offering green screen environments that feel like they're actually dynamic physical sets, which is what I'm going to segue into next. And that's kind of a really fun thing that I'd like to bring up is actually hiring your fabrication partner or your booth builder to actually fabricate sets. If you're a corporate planner working for an actual company, you might actually build this within an existing showroom or within a warehouse space, so you can actually televise and broadcast your things from there. In a more abstract sense, James Corden actually had their set, all their sets built out in his garage, so he has a physical space, which in my experience is an upgraded experience from like a Jimmy Fallon, where you have him actually broadcasting from his home in a more guerrilla style thing. But even think about a step further. We're actually producing this hip hop series, an underground hip hop series, and we have a very large cosmetics company that wants to sponsor 3 artists of the series. So we're going to go into their actual homes or studio environments in their nearby vicinities, because they're all over the United States, and we're actually going to build out these sets that are in the likeness of the brand. Then separately, we're going to combine that in real life experience where they can actually engage in the set, they can walk through it, there's upgraded lighting and audio, but we're also going to mail all the influencers and other performers this kind of gift box of all these items from that cosmetics brand to make it really a full circle experience. And with that, you can engage the digital and the in real life high touch experiences that people and consumers are used to, but create a physicality and environment that feels really authentic and real. It's just like why on a regular TV show in a non-COVID situation, why they actually spend money to build out studio environments, because people want to interact with those set pieces. It makes it more dynamic. But obviously the budget thresholds allows us to kind of tick the surface at a digital set or upgrade that to a physical fabricated experience that might require more of the expertise of an event producer, of a set designer, and of course a fabricator. And that might monetize it better for you, and it might make your sponsors feel like they get more tangible value in participating, so you can capture those sponsor dollars. Mahoganey, do you have any comments on that you can kind of add to your dynamic perspective on?
Absolutely. I mean, I love a good set design. I mean, I'm the fan of stage lighting and all of those things that accent your event. And I don't want us to be afraid of using our production skills in a different way. A lot of our colleagues in industries, we're hearing these conversations that the budget doesn't exist, but I would like you to really rethink about how you're framing your stage and how you're framing the event. You already had an AV budget. Really look at that and how can you leverage that to create something. When I think about our virtual town halls that we were producing as well, I mean, they were also, yes, we had physical events, but we were bringing in 5 different locations. And each location had its own look and feel. But then we started to get smarter and use those as opportunities. We can still leverage those same opportunities to brand each stage.
Mm-hmm. And Mahoganey, you brought up a really interesting point that I think that all of our audience is going to be really tuned into, and that is that the budget doesn't exist comment from a client is not necessarily true and genuine. Exactly how we started off this segment by talking about the interchangeability of a pivoted idea. The reason why the budget doesn't exist for some clients, because some clients, don't forget, they're making more money than they ever have during this. Not everybody, certainly not the majority of people. But there are streaming clients and there are cosmetics brands that are actually making more money in this situation than they were before it, right? The money might not exist in their eyes because they don't know what they can get. They're not actually analyzing the return on investment of why you want to spend that kind of money. But if you can present them with valid pivots that they can showcase brand value within, that can be validated to get higher figures. And so actually that's a great segment or a great segue to kind of move us into our next thing, and that is the balance of digital and in real life touch events. And we're going to actually case study Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers has suspended all of their premieres in light of the current situation. What they did for the new property called Scoob, it's an animated feature about Scooby-Doo, which I have not seen, so nobody judge me. However, what they did was they engaged a highly, highly digital millennial audience on TikTok, okay? And they also engaged BarkBox, which I think is a really fun twist of engaging playful nature and also the dog element. So the BarkBox for May was guaranteed to be all Scoob products. You get the Mystery Machine, all the snacks for Scooby Snacks co-branded, all that. Well, BarkBox, for the first time in their service history, sold out immediately. And separately, the last data that I was able to track and grab for you guys, and it's showing on the screen right now, is that 4 billion people engaged on TikTok. The world's population is 7 billion, just so we're clear. And in the last presidential election in America, only 200 million people showed up to vote. So 4 billion people engaged with a TikTok campaign showing their Scoob dance, which I have no idea how to use TikTok, so don't ask me to do it. But it was a highly successful campaign that this cutaway is clearly showing you is both ridiculous and also entertaining.
Now let's go back to pivots a little bit. And with a lot of different corporate groups and associations having the need to pivot their gala events or social style events, one of the trends that I'm starting to see that I'm really enjoying and embracing is really marrying, again, like we said, the in real life with the virtual experience. I know our team is currently curating an actual chef series where we have a chef that will teach how to cook the recipe, but we will also prep the event before it even happens. So they get a kit delivered directly to their homes with the ingredients needed to cook, with the wine pairings and all of the above. And then our team facilitates all of those things. So you have a mix of both the in-person experience along with the virtual experience.
You're so right, though. I mean, I really, people were kind of missing the whole gala pivot when you're this passive audience that's just watching people talk and asking for money, because the experience of being there and getting value out of that is just kind of lost. I know that in our ecosystem for our company, we've had some brunch pivots. So instead of having, we had a beautiful cancer celebration of life cancer brunch that we do for a medical group every year, and obviously that's an immunocompromised audience anyway. So we sent out these cool mimosa kits in the mail and made a really passive experience become more dynamic. And then we still gathered that whole group digitally just to hang out, which is very weird because there was only a 5-minute program from the president that happened, but it was a really cool, dynamic way of being high touch, and people still felt connected in a sense because they knew that everybody else there got the same kind of in real life experience, and everyone had a nice toast moment that we had not planned but had certainly hoped for, and that was very cool. In this next cutaway, you guys can see that Johnston Wines is hosting these interesting partnerships where they have curated sports stars, and they have interesting celebrities that are doing wine tastings that are all guided. So you can actually buy a flight of wines, have it mailed to your home, and enjoy that wine in a more dynamic entertainment sense. And we have gala clients that are trying to raise a lot of money, that are trying to do these things, and they're asking, how do I make that experience more complete? And the answer is, I think it can be answered by Humane Society, which Eventique, our friends in New York, actually just hosted. And that actually hit 19 countries with 131,000 attendees. And they mixed programming with video content with performance to really kind of create a dynamic experience. And I think that if you add that element of a wine or food tasting or something of that nature, you're kind of accessing all the emotional spectrum and all of the sensory spectrum of guests of why experiential became so popular within an at-home experience. So it really makes it more of a pivot. I know we kicked this whole thing off saying that these aren't really pivots, but we're getting closer to a pivot if you combine this experience to, again, go back to Mahoganey, like we've been saying for years, hybrid experiences, even in this time.
Hybrid doesn't have to be non-human touch. Like, let's really bring it back to what you're really trying to create, and what is that experience that you're trying to create.
I love that. Yeah, it's really such an interesting way to explore it. And again, I'll go back to that point to remind the audience, there might be money for this if you show it to your client that way, because there's more KPIs here, and there's certainly a lot more that you can do with it that creates and engages a dynamic audience. And that's kind of a good segue to where we see these case studies coming out of the world that are so unique, where you have the game Fortnite. If you're unfamiliar with Fortnite, you're probably under a rock. I've never played it, but I know what it is, and it's a ridiculous game that it seems like every adolescent, maybe younger than that, audience is totally into right now. And it's a battleground game where people can shoot each other, but in a more unique sense. People are now using that, and media is now using that as a platform to share media and content. And the original case study was actually had over a year ago. And over a year ago, when we didn't have to stay remote and removed, Marshmello, the DJ Marshmello, actually presented a custom DJ set, and they actually, over the course of a week, had a digitally built concert stage in the gameplay. And then they actually performed. At the finale was his performance, and he actually streamed a live set to the platform. Now, more recently, we've seen a couple things. We have Travis Scott that actually premiered an entire, I believe it's a 9-minute digital set. We're actually cutting away to that right now, so you guys can see what that's like, where people actually came in the game live, and they actually watched the feed live internationally, with Travis Scott actually performing live. He was actually outfitted with a reference suit and did the performance live and actually recorded it, and it's pretty incredible stuff. Separately, Warner Brothers released their new extended trailer for the movie Tenet, Chris Nolan's new feature coming out in July, and they released that in-game. There was a drive-in movie-style cinema screen that people could actually gather to, and you can move your character around, and you're able to throw stuff at the screen like you can see in the cutaway. And as you can see here, they premiered a movie trailer in real time within the game. Now, when your audience and client asks you how to do this for their brand, remind them that this is $500,000 to $5 million to even start getting engaged with. But I wanted to kind of let you guys know that you can analyze these unique platforms to do this with, and it is attainable, but it's certainly a little bit farther out of reach for most everyone's comfort zone. But in a similar way, you can access free services like Twitch. I know a lot of my clients are using Twitch as a broadcast platform because it's fairly reliable. It's fairly easy to use. And even if you're not a gaming client or a gamer that watches Twitch streams, which is what the platform is typically used for, Twitch has quickly become a reliable broadcast outlet because you can plug in multicam, you can plug in different streams, and it's a fairly easy broadcast platform that anybody worldwide can tune into with proper firewalls, with really shareable, easy to use links, and it's really, really a cool platform to broadcast out to. Mahoganey, in terms of unique, fully digital ideas and pivots, have you seen anything else that works? Are there any other broadcast platforms that you've seen that are, again, fully digital? But what fully digital things have you seen?
I'd like to say, I mean, Twitch is a great example that I feel like is almost underrepresented. StreamYard is also another option. I mean, I find StreamYard is helpful and it's easy and it allows you to do a little bit more from a broadcast standpoint than the typical Zoom or whatever video streaming service you're using. I mean, think of all of the things that we can do now with little to no training almost, and the value that it would add to your production. Being able to do different screen views and all of these things, it immediately updates your production value by adding those little extra touches.
So we're seeing a lot of these broadcast units actually going straight to digital. In fact, the very first one that unfortunately had to pivot to a full digital release was Universal Pictures' release of the movie Trolls World Tour. That went straight to digital. It was garnered as a success, but of course the data and tracking of it's slightly different, and nothing can really beat a theatrical release. But the way that these broadcast units are actually celebrating these direct-to-digital things is, again, how we talked about Scoob, but you're seeing these other TV shows even having in-real-life gifting being brought back. And so through in-real-life gifting, I know we've executed a few for Hulu and FX networks from our company alone, but you're seeing all these companies do cocktail kits and these really cool high-touch tactile things that are delivered to people's homes, and that really that nice personal touch of gifting has kind of been brought back. I don't know, Mahoganey, have you seen any of that in your world?
What I'm loving is the recreation of swag and gifts from a meaningful standpoint.
Yeah.
It's no longer enough to just send a pen and a notepad to your guests, but making them feel excited and enjoy and being able to touch and feel some of the elements from the event has been, I don't want to say a sigh of relief, but it's been nice to see come back. It's been a nice touch that's bringing back the idea of gifting from a fun place that's relevant versus buying because we feel we have to give swag.
You are so right. And obviously, all of this is awesome and it's very engaging. And I really hope that all of you as our digital audience can really kind of embrace some of this. And I hope that you guys can either partner with a vendor that can help you execute on this, or I hope that you guys can expand maybe your service base and work with this maybe for a simpler client and do it out of your own home, as long as it's being done safely and making sure you're following health code guidelines. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it certainly is something, especially right now, that should be considered. If you are planning on undertaking one of these opportunities, you should consider partnering with a caterer who knows that the way to fulfill edible products safely and effectively. And again, in our previous episode about partnerships, this is a perfect moment to slide in a partnership, and that partner might not necessarily have to get credited for it. They can white label it underneath your brand, but making sure that you're executing these ideas very safely, especially because, and one of our wrapping points on this is going to be, most of these pivots are going to be executed in less lead time than ever. In fact, to go back to a previous case study, the Humane Society Gala was actually pivoted to digital in only 17 days, and they still got 131,000 people. To move that to digital is extremely laborious, especially if you want to add an element of in-real-life gifting or engaging sponsors. All those conversations have to coordinate within the organization to reach out to their sponsors and their guests and invite people, and also within your organization of planners or within your ecosystem of how to execute this really, really fast in what we would call in fulfillment, just-in-time fulfillment. Just-in-time fulfillment and planning, as we all know it as an event planner and producer, very, very challenging, especially when you have 4 people you might be talking to or multiple programs at the same time. And Mahoganey, do you want to talk about that, especially when you're interjecting speakers and content about that just-in-time fulfillment?
Absolutely. What used to be unattainable from a content, or we'll call it what's happening today. I mean, think of your conferences and the corporate events and all of those things that we produce. We're usually looking at 12 to 18 months to book certain speakers. We haven't always been able to interject that what's current and what's currently in the news or who's hot today versus 12 months ago, like we're able to now. I mean, it's also a gift to our industry and that we're able to make sure that our content is current and relevant, forcing us to rethink who we actually had on a speaking docket, but it's also allowing us to reconsider the message that we're giving and the speakers that we want to have. And a lot of these speakers are available within the 2-week time frames that we're now seeing versus the 18-month time frame that we used to have. So I will embrace it and enjoy the current shortened timelines, but that's also forcing us to rethink the experience that we truly want to create.
So interjecting speakers and also changing a lineup last minute is one opportunity actually within a digital conference that you can kind of embrace. In fact, a really great conference that just went full digital was Jacqueline Johnston's team executing the Create and Cultivate Summit that was recently held. And she was able to add and edit speakers and panels, and also going back to our points about digital and physical set building, they really did a nice job of having cool backgrounds and cool spaces so it felt more spatial. And I think that developing that spatial element when you have that passive audience tuning in to hear panels and hear keynote speakers is a really cool way to engage. But again, she had the flexibility, and her team had the flexibility to kind of edit that panel or add a surprise speaker because you can book them a week out. And I think that with that, she was also able to tie in and add value to MasterCard, who I believe was the presenting sponsor for her, as well as other sponsors that were kind of plugged throughout the way through, again, gifting, logo recognition, and she also put spots in that segment. By pre-recording some of it and also editing it back together, you're able to allow advertising spots just like a TV network, and she's able to give her sponsors more airtime to produce more value and still monetize those relationships by charging them money. So Mahoganey, in summary, we're here to talk about the real magic of an official pivot is by combining in real life high-touch experiences that can be had at home with a beautifully embraced digital counterpart. Any other closing remarks for the embracing of a full circle digital pivot?
Just want to remind everyone that hybrid has been around, and it's our chance to really reimagine what this experience can look like for our clients and for ourselves. I know I sound like a broken record a lot of times, so if you ever heard me speak, but start with what you do well. This is a true chance to really take what your company's values and propositions are and put it into the experience you're looking to create. It's also a chance to can those events that were being produced for the sake of being produced. Let's really rethink how we are using our event spend and make it work for us. And
Absolutely.
that way we can make these hybrids truly live on. And whether it goes full virtual or whether it's a mix of in-person and virtual, or when we go back to full in-person, these experiences will continue and you would have solidified where you stand as the experience that you want to create as the leaders and brand innovators that we are. So I just want to remind everyone that we are here to stay and that experiences can be reimagined.
Absolutely. And with that, we close, and I appreciate you being my guest this week, Mahoganey. It's kind of fun to turn the tables on that, and we're excited to engage in the live chat. Talk to you guys soon, and thanks for joining us again.